All right, it's 4 p.m. We are going to call this meeting to order. I will accept a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
I second. It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I will accept a motion to move into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session for Idaho Code 74-2061F to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated. The mere presence of legal counsel at an executive session does not satisfy this requirement.
I second. It's been motioned and seconded. All in favor?
Roll call vote.
Roll call.
Chairman Taylor.
Aye.
Trustee Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Kirkman.
Aye.
Trustee Pearson. Aye. Trustee Zabier.
Aye.
Hey, President, microphone. Trustee Pearson, can you touch your mic? Okay. Yeah, I hear you. All right, we are going to move now into executive session. The meeting will resume after we leave executive session here in this room. Hi, we're out of executive session. I know, I realized it after I said it. I felt very confused, like what? All right, we'll go ahead and resume. Trustee Pearson, we're gonna go ahead and let you open up with your comments and questions.
So I just wanted to read a few things because I did a little research on the origin of gender identity, because that seems to be a hot topic right now in curriculums that we are working through to change some policies so that we can eliminate some of this stuff. But I do want to, it's kind of lengthy, I'll try to go quick, but I want to kind of educate everybody, because I think it's important people know where this stuff originated from and know why I don't believe it's a positive thing for our children. Actually, I believe it's one of the biggest threats in crisis facing children, family, generations, and our nation. So it's really a big deal to me. So, originated in the 1960s, it can be tracked back down to one man. He's a sexologist and a psychologist from New Zealand, Dr. John Honey. He was the first in his field of sexuality and gender. He made popular the terms gender identity and founded the first gender identity clinic at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore in 1966. He believed that someone could be born with male genitalia, but then can still be female. So the big thing that was important was that the case that they based all their transgender transformations on was his case. You can look it up, John/Joan case. Dr. Minnie reported as John/Joan case instead of David Reimer, R-E-I-N-E-R, was the patient. Dr. Minnie encouraged the gender reassignment of David Reimer, who was born along with his identical twin brother in 1965. David and his brother were circumcised, and during that time, David had an irreversible traumatic experience with it, and they basically removed his penis. So because of that, Dr. Money decided to make David a girl. At age 13, at age 22, he performed surgical castration and constructed a pseudo-female genitalia. David started to experience severe gender dysphoria and didn't feel like a girl. At age 13, he was starting to threaten suicide and was transitioning or spiraling out of control mentally. And the parents had never told the twin boys that they were actually both boys. And in adulthood, David had transitioned back to male. The end prognosis of this family, both the boys in adulthood committed suicide. The father sunk into alcoholism and his mother attempted suicide. The significance of this specific case study, you are trying to prove a hypothesis. And Dr. Money believed his hypothesis in a study with these twins was that gender was not determined by biology at birth, but rather gender was determined by social construct. For 25 years, the case of John /John was called a medical triumph. Proof a child's gender identity could be changed, and thousands of sex reassignments were performed based on this case. According to the Intersex Society of Northern America, this case was used to reinforce Dr. Money's theories on gender identity. But this case is the most well-known example supporting the opposite, an innate gender identity hypothesis. As case studies are supposed to go, you can logically contradict by empirical evidence. The case and therefore the hypothesis is to be rejected. And just as a medical professional, we never diagnose a patient mentally or physically based strictly on subjective observation. We use objective observation holds most weight in diagnosing other patients. Gender dysphoria is extremely rare, according to the DSM. Those who have received a diagnosis of gender identity disorder or transsexualism in surgery represent males 0.005 to 0.014%, females 0.002 to 0.003%. These statistics have raised dramatically. Why you say popular in social media, receive millions of likes, teaching in the educational system. And I read this a little bit last meeting, but I didn't have good reception. Examples: Dylan Mulvaney, he's an influencer, Chloe Cole, Jazz Jennings. There was a quote from one man who was detransitioning. The only reason I bring this up is because I want you to see where gender identity came from. Dr. Money coined that phrase. And there's many people detransitioning. Here's a quote from a Steve A. Richards, who detransitioned. No clinical description of my transition in a sexual castration can really capture how it feels. They gorged into my soul. They warped and molded me into something perverted, demonic, into someone else's fetish. I was only 14. I have to live with this forever. Dr. Paul McCurr, who took over the clinic, Johns Hopkins Clinic that Dr. Money opened, closed the clinic down in 2023 because he started doing a study on the outcomes of all the babies that he transitioned. And they didn't help the patient. I just wanted to conclude with some facts. Sex is binary. It only comes in two brands, male and female. XY chromosome is male, XX chromosome is female. Males and females differ in size, muscle mass, bone structure, and density, shape, brain function. Every cell in the body with a nucleus has only male or female DNA, except for the hair, nails, and skin cells. Archaeologists can dig up human bones and determine whether female or male. There's a few cases where there's one Klinefelter syndrome, 1 in 5,000 births, where a child is born with two X chromosomes and a Y chromosome. These births are still male. There's a Turner syndrome where an X chromosome is missing. These are female. In both these conditions, although difficult, some have been able to have children. Point is, they still have female or male down to their cells. Neuroscientist Dr. Steven Pinker stated, differences between the sexes are part of the human condition. And I just wanted to say, we have all been created in God's image, man and woman. We are beautifully and fearfully made, just the way we're supposed to be at birth. That to say, if you studied how the body is so beautifully designed to create in a way that requires a perfect symphony of structures, cells, chemical reactions, multiple facets that must line up perfectly, this, my friend, is no accident. We must encourage and praise kids for who they are and who they have been born to be. We need to encourage actions we should never encourage actions that would rob a child from the future of meeting their opposite sex to who they can create and produce a life together and a family with a love and bond so deep it enriches their lives, their children's lives, society, and future generations. My heart goes out to those who suffer from mental health. I don't want to disregard those who do. Gender dysphoria, real, but rare. Most cases with proper help can be counseled and helped without life-altering drugs and surgeries, at the very least, not encouraged and taught as normal in our educational system. These teachings are leading to the demise of the children's future. They're robbing children of their innocence. We need to reinforce that children are beautifully and wonderfully made just the way they're born. No, never worry about who will be offended if you speak the truth. Worry about who will be misled, deceived, and destroyed if you don't. A quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer: "Not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act."
Thank you, Trustee Pearson. Is there anything else that you would like to comment on, or are we good?
That's good for now. I mean, I had more of it.
For now.
I'll stop now.
Okay, next trustee.
Yeah, if I can say some things. I wanted to thank Dr. Russell for bringing this proposal. I think this is a great time, and I think we can make it fit. I really enjoyed all of it, and I think this being a base can also provide us the ability to make some necessary changes to other policies, such as the book policy or policies that involve our kids. So I'm excited about this. I'm all for it. There may be some things that we want to look at more closely. I know that the Idaho School Activities Association, the Forward School Activities, they have specific rules that we need to abide by, and I think they mostly fall in line with what we're trying to do. So I am excited. I want to move forward with this being moved forward.
Thank you, Trustee Baye. Trustee Kirkman or Trustee Simpson?
Quick question, IHSAA, if they have policies in place that we may not agree with this district and therefore not follow, what's the repercussions from that? Will they just say you can't pay it or you can't play it? You can't pay it.
Chair Kirkman, good question. I don't know off the top of my head. I have to research kind of what their applications are and how following IHSAA. I can get that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just look forward to first read and conversations and working through this policy.
Any other questions, Trustee?
So let's just clarify the process here for this particular draft policy. Will this be, or do we know at this point if this will be on the next regular board meeting for our first reading, or are we going to do a work session to go through that, or is that the purpose of this?
Chair Kirkman, just so a review of the process or the board policy that we have on how we adopt these processes is usually it depends on legal review. We had some discussions about that, and so there's probably some adjustments that need to be made to that. But then it would go to our first read. Based on some of the adjustments, we could bring a first read to the board at the next board meeting. At that point, then that opens up to open discussion on how the board feels about the first reading, and the board talks through that. Typically, what would happen then is the board would give the administration some suggestions on modifications that they may see or want to see. Trustee Simpson can pop in here because she's done a couple of these. And then it would come to a second read. So at another board meeting, it would come to a second read. At that point, again, you could make more adjustments and send it back to administration to make adjustments, or you could at that point vote into full policy.
Right, and I understand that policy, or that process, and we can also, if the board chooses, just adopt it after first read. And that's an option there too. I'm not saying that's what's gonna happen, but, so legal review comes back to administration. Will you take some of those comments and redraft the proposal if necessary after legal review and then bring that to the next board meeting? Is that kind of what we're looking at?
Yeah, Trustee Kirkman, I think that's probably what would happen is we make some draft adjustments. Typically, what you'll see things is red line about where changes are made, where new information is put in, so it's clear. That's kind of the process we've done in the past.
Right. And we're going to make sure that obviously is going to be out there for public review, possible comments. I'm not, I don't want to.
So I think part of why the procedure in the past has been first read and then second read before approval is part of that. And typically it's been done in a regular board meeting for that reason, that it's on there for public comment at least twice. Does that make sense?
No, I get it.
So,
I totally understand the
yeah.
process. I was just specifically about where we are right now with this particular draft. Is what I was.
And along with Trustee Kirkman's question, what do you guys, or excuse me, Dr. Russell, what do you believe the time frame is around this policy? Would you say 30 days? Would you guys believe that's an acceptable time frame, or in past days has it taken 60 days?
Well, I think it's just whatever
That's what I'm
administration can get
Get
to
done,
us.
and like, what's that time frame normally look like?
Yeah, Chair Taylor, a typical process, it's usually probably 2 board meetings, as Trustee Simpson had mentioned. But again, part of that depends on the edits that are suggested. Part of that depends on going through legal review. But typically, most have been within 2 months. Around this topic, I understand that there's concerns. The board could also ask the administration just to not teach certain standards in certain courses, and that could be a pretty immediate adjustment that could take place right now while the process is going through.
Well, and that was going to be my next question. Separate from this draft policy and the procedure that this will go through, and I do believe that this should be methodical, 1, 2, 3 readings, that whole process. I appreciate the comment on all this. But aside from that, what can we do right now? Because in 2 months, school's going to be over.
Sure.
No, it's going to be over in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, at least for my senior daughter.
Yeah, so Trustee Kirkman, some options right now, as I mentioned, there could be a request from the board for the administration just to not teach certain standards in certain courses, and that could be made immediately. There also could be a suggestion about not teaching certain content on all courses across. The board could direct the administration to begin to investigate that through every course. Now, we have 240 courses, so that would take some time, but that could be an option. And then the policy, of course, would oversee that as we go through that. The other thing that came up in some of the work sessions and some of the comments from patrons that we heard was information. How do we inform parents about what's occurring? And the administration can speak to that a little bit. Rough drafts, at least rough drafts of where we are. With that, if the board would like more information about what that might look like.
Dr. Russell, when you give us, I would personally like that information, trustees. When you give us that information, can you also give us some budget ideas too, if it'll cost, like if there's something that we have to do, because we're talking about opt-in versus opt-out, we're talking about first hour online. Can you also come back with budget numbers too on like what that effort would look like?
Yeah.
Just so that we understand, because I would assume that we would want personnel. Or something along those lines, or at least somebody to help with at least implementation, how we get these things done. Like, I just would assume that there would be a shift in something like this. Is that correct?
Chair Taylor, yes, there's a possibility that there could be some budgetary items that may need to be shifted with it. Depends on the actions that the board asks the administration to do. And I really can't speak to those until I know what those specific actions are, and then the administration will have to come back and make sure that the information that might need, whether that's staffing, whether that's some tool that we might need.
So would that happen after you guys bring kind of that initial idea of what that would look like to us, and then we give you a direction of how we'd like to go, then the budget conversation would occur?
Trustee Taylor, probably depends on the action. yes, that you would request, or the board would request, I should say.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask also, I know last meeting we had a situation where one person who was a student discussed some issues that was, I'm still baffled by trying to figure all out what people can say and what people can't say. And so I want to know if this is something that can be put in the meetings that we have from now on, or some type of description of what is allowed or not, because in talking to this family in my zone, who were part of this, they were basically shut down, I believe. And they were not able to, I don't know, so much courage. These students have so much courage. And obviously, they don't understand or know a lot of the rules. A lot of people that come here. And to be shut down like that, I believe it's improper. And we did a terrible job as a board it's my own personal belief, I may be wrong, and the attorneys could probably be sending me letters, I don't know how it works. But I believe that we need to have something said so that people know what they can say or what they can't say. I'm still unclear. Seriously, to me, it's still, and we didn't have enough time to process that in our meeting just before this. But I want to make sure that that's in place.
Okay, I wanted to, you want to speak and then I'll speak too.
Yeah, trustee Riley, understand the comments and did reach out and speak with the family and talk with the family with that. Typically, what we want to be careful with patrons is when it moves into a specific action around a teacher or a staff member of the district. And again, had the comments been in general around the curriculum, then that was one thing. It was moving into specific actions that were taking place in the class that, again, the district wants to be cautious of due to liability. And that's just something that understanding that can be confusing, and understanding that it was a really great gal, and we want to encourage patron comments on that, but we do need to be careful with that. It's something that we have. I've been trained on, understand the liability of that.
Trustees, would the board training around this be something that you're asking for, or maybe more of, maybe just something that spells out like a document that I can send over to you guys for
Yeah,
review? I think that, like,
Yeah, we have a
maybe,
policy too.
we do, but like, I try to figure out how to
What
get
I think,
more.
what I think is maybe before we have meetings where we're having public comment, we can kind of give them a clear understanding of things they need to think about, and if, and what to do if there's things they want to include in their comment, like names or an event, to please contact superintendent or principal so they know, because us knowing isn't going to matter, because that just really hurt my heart to see her be shut down, because to me, she was very brave, and I know I have kids, and that would be very difficult to even do that, and I think she came and became courageous. She was courageous, which I think is, you may have many kind people, but you don't have a lot of courageous people. And she's a young, courageous person, and I think that's very commendable, and I think at the very least, that's why we all are here, for her. She's the voice I wanted to hear. I care about her voice more than any other voice in the room. The students are why we're all here. And I felt it was very brave, and maybe if something like that happened in the future, she needs to be reminded of that. And I don't know the legalities of it. I didn't see there was anything there. She was addressing her experience under that curriculum, being taught that curriculum. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, but I didn't see that it should have been shut down. But in the future, and if you're hearing this, I commend you. I think you did an awesome thing. Your voice is what matters most to me. So I appreciate you coming up, and I wish I could have been here and came down and gave you a hug. I would have. That's very courageous.
So trustees, would it maybe make sense if you read our policy and then our grievance policy? So not only do they know what they can't say, but where those would go if those are what their comments are about? Okay, I love that idea.
I'm just wondering if I may add.
Please.
Comment. Yeah, on Trustee Vallejo's comment, I think what we could do is kind of provide some written guidelines for speakers so they know when they cross the line, when they haven't. And to me, it sounds like this young lady had no idea she was crossed the line and then suddenly got shut down. So I think it would be very beneficial for the board to provide that guidance to anyone that wants to sign up and have a little card. Here's your cheat sheet, make sure your comments comply with this. And I think that would go a long way just resolving that kind of problem in the future.
Perfect.
Thank you. I also just think, I don't know if we can link it possibly on the website. I'm just thinking because we do have it in policy, it was read at that meeting, but it's really something that people need to see ahead of time because they're coming in with prepared statements. And then because public comment is at the beginning, like depending on when someone signs up, they may not have time to rearrange and change things. I don't disagree with you all. I think it was amazing that she came and shared. I think very courageous, and I do agree. I wanted to hear from her. I just thought the setting needed to be different based on my experience. And I feel like if we've got an employee doing things that is detrimental to students, we need to follow the letter of the law so that we can make sure that that can stop happening, right? I mean, and not make ourselves liable because it is hard in an open meeting to know. But so those things are there, but I'm just thinking whether it's on a card when you come in or just more, posted with the agenda, maybe, I don't know, under the public comments section, if those things are on there so people can pull them up.
I just
see them.
So, I think we can do all of those. What I would say is I don't know how effective that really is. We just get a lot of people who come to meetings, and when it's their first meeting and they don't understand, I do think it's most helpful, and I feel responsible to make sure that they're aware. So I think something when you check in would be really, really helpful. We can also read something like that. I like the idea of something right when they sign up, like new to meetings, and also explaining the type of meeting that we're having. When we get participation, I love it. But I really want to make sure that the community understands the type of meeting that we're having so that they don't feel like we're shutting them out. I want them to understand what the meeting is for, and I love the idea of continuing to reiterate our policies and remind people of how they work, because obviously it's helpful to have that information consistently presented because it's not something our patrons need to deal with daily, so they may forget or not be fully aware.
Trustees, Chairman Taylor, Brett, could you also address practice and then implementation, because the practice has not been consistent about allowing patrons to speak towards people by name or identifying them. They have once we started, they have to be consistent with their practice, because their practice has not been that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the board would agree that once the policy is in place, that everyone, and once we're enforcing it, it has to be, every single speaker has to be treated the same. And I think everyone would agree with that. And I think clarifying this so both the speaker and the board understand where those lines are will help that communication and fairness for everybody to speak.
I'm glad that we're addressing this. I gave him a personal apology because I felt like I didn't know enough. I didn't know enough to be able to understand what was going on. And also because we did hurt her feelings. We did hurt her. And I would hope that we all, as a board, at least come to that realization that even though we may have been right or wrong, that an apology is important for her and her feelings. Because she was right. And I would tell you there was a lot of tears in there. And I don't. We have to own the fact that we could have been more prepared for people and we can do better.
Taylor,
Trustee Kirkland?
I want to get back to where I was kind of addressing as far as the proposed policy and what we could do at this point right now with the psychology curriculum. Is there something that we want to direct the administration, Dr. Russell and his staff, that until a draft comes to us for review, is there something that this board would like to do with the current psychology course that is in question and or any other courses that might have this subject matter?
Trustee Kirkman, I appreciate the question. Can we make that directive with no action on the agenda?
I think we could ask the superintendent what he thinks he can do to solve the problem in the meantime.
Okay,
He's
he's got a mic.
Doctor.
He's got a
Okay.
I think the
Attorneys
superintendent,
always repeat themselves.
the superintendent can suggest a solution to solve an issue for the rest of the year until the board has had a chance to fully address the issue and resolve the policy. In the meantime, I kind of think it was like a Band-Aid, put a Band-Aid, and then we go back and treat the patient.
So Chair Taylor, Trustee Kirkman, what the administration can do immediately is, again, has looked through this already too, so all the psychology courses that are taught across the three high schools is just not teach the standard that covers, I believe it was gender identity and multiculturalism was the standard. We simply could say that we're not teaching that. And I don't believe that would have any major impacts as far as dual credit or anything like that, which was one of the concerns. So that's the first and simplest one. The second thing the administration should do is communicate that to all the teachers who teach it. I would do that personally. Go visit, talk to them, let them know. And then the third thing we could do is again, while the policy is going through, is continue to look through all the courses that may have anything that resembles a standard close to that. And look through it and again, similarly, just say that we're not going to teach that. So those are some of the immediate ones we can do while we're going through the policy.
So, Chair Taylor, I would like to propose or suggest that the administration do those three things and move forward with that. I don't think it's an action. I think this is a suggestion on what they can do, and we're just agreeing with it to move forward. I also want to make sure that that it's mentioned that this was one particular instance at Nampa High School in one particular class. This was not something that was brought up that was going on at Columbia High School or at Skyview High School or in the middle school or whatever. So I think that's an important thing to bring up also. But I do think that it's important to be consistent with what's being taught to our students. So I like the approach, the options that you brought up, Dr. Russell, and I would suggest that you move forward with that.
Chair Kirkman, Trustees, I know we don't have too much time left. I did want to maybe kind of shift us if we could around the opt-in process and kind of where we are for that, just to inform the board, because the administration has looked into that. And that was something that we heard is more information to parents about what is taught, what is in the schedules and things. So for next school year, what we could do is we could look at using Parent Square. Not a perfect tool, but it's something that would allow us to start moving that direction of informing parents better. What it would entail is initially is an email that would come from Parent Square, letting parents know that their students have signed up for courses. And then immediately after would be a second email where parents could click in, find their student, and then find out what their schedule is. And they would have to click approve of that. In that second email, for some of the courses, they could click on that and be able to see what content is being taught and covered and what standards are in there. Now, ideally, it'd be great to do it in one email, but limitations, unfortunately, there would be two that would come. And that's probably the easiest route for us to go that way. It is not something, though, that would not be without some obstacles for us. So first and foremost, not every parent is on Parent Square. For example, I was looking at one of our high schools, and we have 74% of one of our high schools parents signed up. So that's 25% parents would not be able to receive that email or be able to approve their student's curriculum or schedule, excuse me. And if that's the case, and just think about 1,200 kids, 25% of that, that's 300 and some kids that would not have a schedule. And then what does the district do for those students? That becomes an issue. The second part is schedules often change. Again, students move over the summer, students move in, numbers aren't always perfect, and sometimes when we open school, some courses are very high, again, courses of 40 plus in a class, and so we sometimes move students and move them out of classes or get schedule changes and work through that. Again, as soon as that schedule changes, we would have to probably send another email to parents that those schedule changes occurred, and then another email to go in and approve some of the changes that happened. So this could be a very cumbersome process with a lot of emails coming to and through with parents. And then to Trustee Pearson or Taylor's question earlier about needs, that this is something that might be very difficult on other counselors because it is already very cumbersome to schedule over 4,000 high school kids through 240 courses at the beginning of the year. It is a lot of work, and adding this on top of it could be a great challenge. But that's currently where we are with the best understanding of what we could do. And I know we're running out of time tonight, but that's something the administration could bring in our next board meeting to kind of share with draft what that might look like, so you can kind of see those emails and things.
So some clarification. So do parents have access to all curriculum that their student is being taught? Is there a way to access curriculum that their students being taught?
There is, for some of the courses, yes. For some of the courses, no. Some of the courses that we have on our website that parents can go and access. This would give a better opportunity for parents to be able to see actually what courses students are registered for and go clicking this. So for example, in psychology, you can see your student registered for that. You would have to approve that. And then you could go in and click in psychology and it possibly could open you up to that. Now, again, not every course has that, so that would be something that we would have to work for as a district and start building that out. That would likely take our curriculum department some time. We have been focused primarily on our core courses. It's the elective courses, and for 20 years we have really pushed electives. We have 240 courses, which is, I think I mentioned in our work session, about the same size as West Ada. A district that's 3 times our size, so we would have to do some work in that area, but the goal would be to get there.
Trustees, for sake of time, I just want to clarify, did we all want to agree with Trustee Kirkland's directive? Was that an area or a way that we would like our superintendent to go until we can move through policy? Yes, okay.
If I could make one, I don't think at this point, because there's no action item that we could give them a directive.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking, is so we can leave this in
He's
theory.
providing a suggestion on what he's going to do going forward and informing you of that, but because it's not an action item.
We're just saying,
Okay.
go forward.
Yeah.
Go for it, great, good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, good idea. And then the second thing is that do we all want to see that draft at the next meeting for, it's sounding like an opt-in or a schedule acceptance? Is that what you guys are-
And it'd be nice if we could have it like a week before that so we can really dig into it. And that parents really dig into it.
Who, Dr. Russell, who would be you?
Yeah.
Mr. Stopper is listening to that.
So that's raising his hand.
We've talked about it. So, again, my biggest concern, being the superintendent, is what do we do for students who don't have an approved schedule?
Right.
And where do they go? What happens the first day of school? How do they get educated if that process doesn't go through? So those are things just for us to think about. And again, no answers needed tonight, but if you think through those and give recommendations, that would be helpful for the administration to address that.
And Dr. Russell, do you believe that we'll have something to look at a week before our next meeting?
I believe we will. Yeah, I think we're close to a draft now, so I think we can have something out by the next meeting and board packet and ready for that. So may I ask just a clarification, Trustee Taylor? For Trustee, are you saying sooner than the typical board packet you would like it?
Yeah, because we're talking 30 days before our next meeting, right? Or something like that.
Well, I think we're
Or less than that,
Is
or-
in
May 15th.
May 15th, so
Oh,
not even
that's
30
good.
days. Yeah.
Well, at least that's not there.
Yeah, okay. So I think we can get that out fairly quickly and get it done, yes. So
As soon as humanly possible, I think that's the standard.
Okay.
I heard something, would be like opting in and then you can see the standards. And I want to make sure, because I think the opposite would be better, like being able to see the standards first and then make a decision about opting in or not. Thank you.
I will, Mr. Stoffer, I do want to sit down with you because I may have just some thoughts, maybe, and some technology that I've been exposed to and have experience with that has frankly helped my work a lot too. So I don't know if that's an option, but I'd like to sit down.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Kirkman. There is, again, that's for this year because those are the tools we have. We are exploring an option that we could do next year that might involve a whole registration process. But students have already registered now, and so this is kind of like the fix it, and then maybe we have a better process here. But I think if you have some ideas of how we can go forward.
Well, we want to fix it so quick that it causes even more problems down the road.
Right.
Exactly. That's starting school is already really difficult on our own schedule. So we often will have, Mr. Stoffer you'll have students in the office, or my schedule's not here, or it's not complete here. That's actually a fairly large number to even start school the first couple of days. We just don't want to exasperate that so that we have 1,200-1,300 kids in that. And that's my word.
Can I say one more thing too? I know we're out of time, but I sent you an email, Superintendent Russell, regarding the mentoring period. And that's something that maybe we can discuss in the future. Wanting to know, I don't know really what it obtains. It just sounds like it's more of a feelings and identity kind of period. I don't know. That's why I'm bringing it to you. And if you could follow me up on that email.
Trustee Pearson, did you receive the email? It came right before the meeting.
Yeah.
I did. Okay, that's why. It came probably while you were in training.
Yeah, right. I was right.
Yeah.
And I know it's kind of short, sending it to you. So.
I just read it while I was driving.
Oh, yeah, literally, I read it on my way here as well.
And I know we're out of time, but.
Trustee Pearson, happy to do that, and I can work with the chair. We can get informational item on that as well, and just share if that's something that would be helpful. But there was some answers to your questions in that. And then,
okay. Because I know it seems like it would be good to have a period like that where kids get help with working on homework or assignments. That's what I thought that kind of class would be. I think would be beneficial. So I don't understand. So thank you, and I'll read your email.
Thank you, Trustee Pearson. All right, trustees, we are down to 4 minutes.
I have one last thing. I don't know if it's something that we can address here, but man, and I know I might be vilified for this, but I know these meetings have to be timely, but I just wish sometimes we had more time to discuss, especially important issues like this, rather than be stuffed into a time box. But I get it. I absolutely get it. But sometimes when we keep saying, well, we only got 5 minutes left, there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot of really important issues that the community wants us to discuss, and sometimes I feel like we're rushed through these meetings. But that's just my opinion, and I appreciate you. Let's get out, let's get this done, and move on, because we all have lives and want to move with that. That's just something I was thinking about on some of these really important issues that have come up.
Trustees, any other comments? Dr. Russell, I just want to thank you for all of your work on getting all of this to us so quickly, from the work session to now, from the opt-in to a new policy draft, always making yourself available. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, it looks like we are, can we conclude 3 minutes here?
No, next week.
I would do it at 6, so that's it.